Pauline Hanson's One Nation may be on track to win some seats in the state election, but in Canberra, the party's representation has shrunk spectacularly today. The dual citizenship saga ended the federal political career of Malcolm Roberts, but in a day of remarkable developments, his replacement has walked away from One Nation. Political editor Andrew Probyn begins our coverage from Parliament House.
It's been a day of drama and untidiness in the Senate. We've seen a defection, witnessed a government minister ditch his portfolio to become the Senate's presiding officer, and there's more than a whisper that another high-profile resignation looms. This has overshadowed a breakthrough in talks between the government and Labor over the citizenship spat, a saga that's embroiled federal politics for the past 4 months.
Please be seated.
In politics, like everything else, it's the company you keep.
Admit the senator.
It turns out Pauline Hanson's new man is not her man at all. When Fraser Anning made his grand entrance, the One Nation leader was nowhere to be seen.
Will the senator please come to the table?
Liberal turncoat Corey Bernardi and Liberal Democrat David Lionhelm were his escorts. Why?
Excuse me.
An early morning spat with his party leader, who he believes has kicked him out.
This is a joke. Our parliament is an absolute joke.
If it is, her party has contributed. The citizenship chaos today required others to be sworn in as new senators.
And bear true allegiance.
23-year-old Jordan Steele-John as the new Green senator for WA. Andrew Bartlett, an ex-Democrat, now a Queensland Green.
Welcome.
There are more vacancies to fill. Fiona Nash's replacement, Holly Hughes, has asked her eligibility to be checked by the High Court, and Stephen Parry's vacancy is yet to be filled. Although his position as Senate President has gone to Scott Ryan.
Order, 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 order!
A tough debut in strange circumstances.
There is a member of this chamber, at least one, who knows that they are not eligible to be here.
That's absolute rubbish, and you know it.
Tasmanian independent Jackie Lambie is impatiently awaiting a dispatch from London as to whether she's dual citizen number 8. The ABC understands she won't wait for the new citizenship disclosure regime to start, details of which have finally been agreed to by the major parties.
This has been a difficult time for the Senate as an institution.
I can tell you where the lack of integrity is. It's here, right here, with a government that has been dragged kicking and screaming.
Politicians will have until the 1st of December to prove they're eligible.
This is effectively asking us to do what we were asked to do when we nominated.
But the deal isn't stopping warnings from both sides of politics that they'll refer opponents to the High Court.
It is ridiculous to be making threats to refer people before we've even gone through this disclosure process.
One Labor MP has got ahead of the process. WA's Madeleine King releasing documents to the ABC to show she was dinky-die Aussie before nominations for last year's election closed. That's one in the clear, but plenty more to be tested. Worrying the coalition will be that any sense of chaos reflects on the government, and there's already despair inside Liberal ranks about their electoral prospects. The developments made for a noisy backdrop to what was a day of high-stakes diplomacy for Malcolm Turnbull. The Prime Minister believes the Asia-Pacific region has rarely been as dangerous as it is now, and he's been talking to leaders to manage the risk of armed conflict. The ABC's National Affairs correspondent Greg Jennett is travelling with the Prime Minister. Greg, what's the PM said about the unruly events back home?
Well, simply accentuate the positives, Andrew, is the tactic. So dual citizenship problem, what dual citizenship problem? Malcolm Turnbull says that's effectively been resolved already by virtue of the disclosure regime that Labor has agreed to. The run of bad polling, well, he didn't explicitly want to talk about that either. No, instead, it's safety, it's regional security, it's even resolving the same-sex marriage postal plebiscite, which happens on his return to Australia on Wednesday. So the Prime Minister really trying to look ahead and above the domestic travails as he went about a fairly hectic day of business here, Andrew.
And Greg, did the Parliament's troubles obscure any of the PM's diplomatic and strategic goals?
Not in between meetings with President Trump, Shinzo Abe, China's Premier Li Keqiang. He did have a full dance card, as it were, and the Prime Minister is making sure that he does address those biggest strategic concerns. So the name of the game for him in Manila today, Andrew, was to tread heavily on the world stage while tiptoeing as lightly as possible through the minefield that is Australian domestic politics. The thriller was not in Manila. It was 6,000 kilometres away.
I prefer Australia, a democracy with Australian characteristics.
Worldly matters would have to wait because politics is very local. Poor polls and a roiling parliament came first.
Democracy is like that. It is often noisy and people disagree.
Fellow leaders can appreciate the predicament.
What role do you think Australia will play, President Trump?
Two's company, three, made for a raucous crowd. Shinzo Abe was added to what was originally a Trump-Turnbull meeting.
Primarily focused on trade, North Korea, other subjects.
Australia and America, the Prime Minister's noted, are joined at the hip militarily. But it's hard to discern what role Australia might play if peace were to be shattered.
We have talked about a wide range of options in respect of Korea. I'm not going to go into any more detail than I have.
Donald Trump's four-nation tour of Asia's almost over. Diplomacy's treated him well.
It was red carpet like nobody, I think, has probably ever received. And that really is a sign of respect, perhaps for me a little bit, but really for our country.
And on return to the White House, he's planning a major statement on trade. His aim? To reverse those deficits with so many of America's free trade deals throughout the region.
Those deficits are going to be cut very quickly and very substantially.
Except us. We've got a surplus with us.
You're the only one. And if I check it, I'll probably find out that way.
Oh, no, it's big. It's real. It's real, Donald.
The Prime Minister can reassure President Trump the US has the better end of the trade deal over a meal. The two have agreed to share dinner tonight, giving Mr Turnbull the chance to raise, if he chose to, bilateral issues like refugee resettlement, which wasn't discussed in the meeting with Japan. Greg Jennett, ABC News, Manila.